Hi, friends, and a very pleasant good day, and welcome to 15241 Today Talk. Jim Render and I are honored to be joined today by the Township Manager, Matt Serakowski, and the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. John Rozzo. There are a lot of great things about Upper St. Clair, including the magazine that comes out, I believe, 4 times a year. The latest spring issue is out. And, gentlemen, you write in this article that you take a quote from the book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And the quote is that the boy was asked, was the glass half full or half empty? And the boy responded, I think I'm grateful that I have a glass. So how are your different organizations dealing with COVID-19? Matt?
Well, 2020 was quite a challenge for all of us. I know John has his own notes as well over the past year. It has been a challenge, one of opening facilities, closing facilities, responding to directives from Allegheny County, the Commonwealth. But the positive in all of this is the strength of our two organizations to be able to work together through a lot of these challenges. While the school district and John's people were focused on getting the kids back to school and doing it in a safe manner, we were focused on running our summer programs, getting the kids out on the ball fields, our recreation center, getting it up and running. But being able to do that with the school district, it's actually been it's been a pleasure. It's been an asset for us to be able to work together on that.
Yeah, I agree. As Matt said, obviously, the past 13 months have been quite unusual and have presented us with challenges that we never imagined we'd see. And, throughout the last year, it seemed as soon as you felt like you had a good handle on things, the direction changed. And so we take a lot of guidance from the governor's office, from State Department of Health, from the Allegheny County Health Department, and then there's guidance, there's recommendations, and then there's mandates. And so then trying to really make sense of all that and ultimately do what's best for your kids and for your community at times has been really challenging. And as you can imagine, people have very strong opinions, particularly when it comes to their children. I know I do. I have 3 children. They're in the school district here. And some people are the belief that, the model we have in school, we should have not closed at all. Other people believe we still shouldn't be enclosed. And so really trying to meet those collective needs has been a tremendous challenge. But I can say our school district, I'm very proud of the work we've done. We have provided a great deal of quality in-person learning for the majority of this school year, as well as a remote option for those families and students who aren't yet ready or unable to come to school. But to piggyback on what Matt said, Matt and I worked closely and worked together well before the pandemic, but throughout the pandemic, the relationship, not just only our relationship, but the relationship between the school district and the township certainly got stronger. There were many times where Matt and I were communicating and talking several times a week, and that benefited us because as he said, we serve the same community, and we both recognize that, and we both recognize that we make each other stronger, and we're on the same team. He may be representing the township, I'm the school district, but at the end of the day, it's the same team. We're all part of Upper St. Clair community. And when we talked about opening facilities and fields and things like that, it's really important that the township and the school district is on the same page. And that's not necessarily the case everywhere, but I feel very fortunate that was the case here. And a lot of that is because of the great collaboration and support we have from our township leadership.
Well, John, talk a little bit more about that. Was the relationship between the two organizations always strong, or is it stronger now than it's ever been?
Well, Lanny, I've been the superintendent now for 3 years, and I've been with the district almost 17. But I think I could speak to the last 3 years, being that in my role prior to being the superintendent, I can't say that I worked as much with the township or Matt. I mean, we knew each other, but didn't have the level of collaboration, or didn't have the interaction as obviously you do when you're the superintendent and township manager. I could say since the outset of my superintendency, I've felt that we've had a good relationship, a good working relationship. And each month, each day, whatever you want to say, it's getting stronger. I know I have a tremendous amount of trust in Matt and the township. I feel like I can call and really process anything with him, and almost every time, and I'd like to think I'm the same way, although he's made probably more helpful to me, is by the end of the conversation, he's really helpful to me. And so while he's not an employee of the school district, that community perspective has really been valuable. So I can say, to answer your question, since I've been superintendent, I've felt we've had a great relationship, tremendous collaboration. And again, it's only gotten stronger, and I'm confident that our best days are still ahead of us.
Matt?
I couldn't agree more with John's words. Having had the opportunity to work with, John is now the fourth superintendent that I've worked with, going back to Dr. Pope. My early years here in the township, watching Dr. Pope and former manager Doug Watkins work together and the things they were able to accomplish and build together, the sense of community that was created by those two gentlemen. It's something that when John and I first had the opportunity to meet a little over 3 years ago, I had that same feeling that the things that we were going to be able to build upon, the various facilities and assets and things that we have here in Upper St. Clair that we're so blessed to have. John and I see things very similarly in a lot of ways, and I know we kind of have fallen back on the pandemic as it has been a focus. That really became stronger during the pandemic. Our communication was always very good, but it ramped up. If the township was going to take an action, say to do something as simple as open a field up, especially in the spring of 2020, after things were shut down for a while, people were itching to get back out. Many of our colleagues, many of our other communities out there were still focused on how they were going to handle things, how they were working with people, their employees. We were looking at ways to get things opened back up again. And I distinctly remember a call that I made to John at one point, late spring, early summer. We were going to open our playgrounds and our fields back up. We wanted to get people back out, and we were doing it well in advance of any other community or school district around. And made a call to John, and I said, John, this is what we're looking at doing. And John says, we were thinking the same thing, we're looking at the same things, but we didn't want to start opening our parks up and not have the stadium opened up for people to be able to walk and enjoy themselves and work out. But it's just something as simple as that sometimes, that we're on the same page with what our objectives were this past year. And that's getting people back into our facilities safely, but getting them back outside.
We are taping this show on March 22nd to give everyone some guideline as to your thoughts to this next question. There is some concern that there is a segment of Americans that believe that COVID is over, we're out of the woods, everything's fine. Where does the township stand in terms of now planning for the summer, such things as community day, parade, and all of that?
That's an excellent question, and something that we are challenged on a regular basis. And I'll use our recreation facility as a prime example. Many people are now getting their vaccines. Many people have the belief, with or without a vaccine, that yes, this is over, the sun's coming out, it's spring, it's summer, let's get out there. And while we want to embrace that hope and enthusiasm as we move into 2021, we also want to do it safely. We want to make sure that we're not taking, steps backwards in doing this. And it's something John mentioned just a bit ago with respect to the kids in the classroom. Same type of, scenario. We want to make sure that people can continue to enjoy these assets as we move forward into 2022. We are all very hopeful that we will have a greater sense of normalcy come summer, and that we will be able to hold, summer recreation, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, softball. We were very successful last year in doing so, and we think we can do the same this year as we open things up.
John, what's the schedule for the school? Is everybody back full-time at Upper St. Clair?
So currently we are 4 days a week in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays are full remote day for all students. We do give students and families the choice if they want to participate in our remote program or in person. Every grade level, the percentage is different, but we're about 20% of our student body is fully remote, 80% is in. We have been running the 4-day-a-week schedule since the beginning of November. We have had some disruptions and some closures that have had to occur because the Department of Health mandated closure thresholds, and so once you hit so many cases in the building, you would have to close for a period of time. So we did experience some of that, but I think by and large, I would consider it a success, what we did this year and what happened here. Certainly our target is 5 days a week, full in-person learning. We know that's what's best for kids. That's what I've really been pushing all along, while also taking advice and direction from the medical professionals. And so after spring break, which is 2 weeks from now, the plan for the final 9 weeks of school is to give students the opportunity to go 5 days a week or to remain remote. Our hope is that we're going to have a normal commencement this year, at least as close as possible. We may not have the same capacity that we would have in a normal year, but as you probably remember last year, we had to shut down everything from spring sports to the prom to graduation to senior banquets to all those events that you just can't make up. Those are one-time opportunities for kids and families. So we're confident and hopeful we'll be able to hold all those this spring in some capacity, and again with the aim of being as close to normal as possible. In terms of next fall, we're very confident and very hopeful that we will be 5 days a week, and beyond being in 5 days a week, to have the school environments hopefully look more like they used to. Right now, all of our students have desk shields on all their desks. And I know that might seem like a minor detail, but for our kids, they've been sitting behind desk shields and wearing masks for the entire year. And so that takes a toll on them. And obviously every kid's impacted differently, but our hope is between that and obviously the decision around masks has made it a much higher level than the school district. But we're hopeful and confident that we'll be 5 days in. And what we've proven throughout this year, and our position was not to prove it, but what an outcome was is we've not seen transmission of this virus occurring in our schools. And so it's happening at social gatherings, it's happening outside of school, and obviously that impacts our kids and how many of them are able to physically attend school. But by and large, our schools are very safe, and virus transmission is rare. And every case we have in the schools is all dealt with and decided upon by the Allegheny County Health Department. So it's not as if we unilaterally make these decisions. We're in close consultation with them. But I'm optimistic that we're headed in the right direction, but we just have to continue, as Matt said, to be smart and to get to where we ultimately need to be.
You mentioned commencement, and you touched on the senior prom. That's going to happen?
That is the plan right now, yes.
Okay.
Now, commencement is scheduled for June 9th. Right now, we are still bound by capacity limits because of what's required. But based off of the size of our stadium, at this point, we can have all of our students, the faculty that is there, and as well as 2 tickets per each graduate. So if we can extend that and have more people attend, that would be great. But right now, we know we can at least do that. The prom, our team is working through some different scenarios to try to identify what might be a way to have a prom. Lots of school districts are looking at creative options that may not look identical to a traditional prom, but to have something that replicates that is certainly what we're trying to accomplish.
I remember also from my days when my children were in the school district. What about the spring musical?
So interesting, the spring musical, when I leave here today, that's where I'm going to a meeting about the spring musical. But we have been in conversation. So the spring musical is happening. As of right now, it is being live streamed so that everyone can watch it. And we are looking at the capability of potentially bringing in parents and having several shows so that they can see their children perform live. It obviously won't be a typical year where you have that theater packed, but we're trying to at least have some parent presence in the theater for the performance. The CDC has different guidelines for musical performances and for singing, not just with distance requirements, but also with the amount of time you could be together. So it's presented some real challenges for the performing arts this year, for sure.
By the way, while I turn it to my co-host, and excuse me for dominating so much early in the show,
all right.
but did you guys know that he started taking golf? He's taking golf lessons now.
Wonderful.
I didn't
him out.
think
He's trying to get to a point where he can beat me. Is what he's trying to do. All right, Coach.
You guys mentioned changes, that obviously we had to do. There's a lot of times I wonder whether we'll ever go back to full normal. In other words, some of the changes you had to make in the school or the township, do you think some of these things are going to be permanent?
From my perspective, yes, I do. There are some things, and some of those things, they're not a bad thing.
Right.
We've learned how to deliver service slightly differently, whether it's online fitness classes or meetings or whatever it may be. There are some things that have maybe forced us to look at how we deliver service just a little bit differently. There's good, there's bad. We'll keep the good and we'll improve on some of the other areas. So I don't think it's in such a negative way, in that I think it's allowed us to look at things, it's required us to look at things a little bit differently, how we deliver.
Yeah, I would agree. There are certainly efficiencies that were gained throughout all of this. For example, how we meet. There still is a lot of power in face-to-face meetings, but a lot of times, we need to quickly pull people together. Now you jump on a Google Meet and it happens, and so I think that's created more efficiency, and it's helped with collaboration. I don't see that changing. There certainly are other things. We have also, I think, realized some of our capacity to deliver some instruction differently. And so what is not really a huge challenge for Upper St. Clair, but is for many public school districts, is students who leave the public school district and go to cyber schools. And when they go to these charter cyber schools, what happens is the public school district has to pay for that. And so if you were a student here and you decided that you wanted to have a full remote online experience, you could go to a cyber charter school and the home public school district has to pay for that. Now we believe we have the capacity to not only offer something, but to offer something we believe is better. And so that would retain students from leaving the district and ultimately keep tax dollars in the township and not shipping them out to a cyber school.
Do you guys think that masks in some form will always be a part of our well-being? And the reason I'm asking that, I read not too long ago that the amount of flu is way down. And they're attributing that to the fact that people are masked up. And even though we have flu shots, we still used to have a lot of flu. But this year, flu is way down. So do you think that there's any chance that masks will always be a part of our, much more so than in the old days?
I don't know if they'll always be a part. I think it probably will still be some time before we would be completely without masks, and maybe never. I guess, my guess on it would be, Coach, that I could see, I don't know if it'll always be a mandate. But
yeah, I don't think it'd be a mandate.
But do I think that perhaps some people may continue to choose to wear masks? Yes.
Getting back to personal choice.
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day, once we get back to personal choice, I could foresee people continuing to wear masks during the winter months or the flu season, but it's got to be a personal choice, not a mandate.
There were people wearing masks on airplanes before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Not a lot, but some.
You've touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the other things that we've learned about ourselves and our organizations? And the old adage is things that hurt instruct. What kind of instruction, what kind of learning have we been able to ascertain, gather by way of this challenge of beating the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think one thing that, you've heard John and I talk a lot about things that have been implemented over the past year. I think one thing we want to highlight and what we've learned over that period is it's just not John and I doing this alone. Our staff, our department directors, our elected officials, our volunteers, the strength in those groups that allow us to have these conversations about how we're going to roll things out. I know John's been very deliberate in his transparency in his public meetings of the school district. But the reliance on those other groups for feedback and that dialogue, that conversation, we've learned a lot about that over this period of time. It's just not John and I sitting here on the phone going, this is what we're going to do this week, based on what the health department shared with us or what the Commonwealth released it on Friday in the afternoon. We're engaging with one another, but we're also relying on the residents and the parents of the students for their feedback as we navigate through this. So I think that's something that has become stronger and that we've picked up and will continue to work with and lean on as we move forward.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. We are. It really does. In the school district, you have to have a strong, supportive school board that are students first. And so our elected officials, I think, have demonstrated their strength, but our administration, our staff, people have really stepped up and gone above and beyond and exceeded expectations. And that's part of why we've been able to remain open, and that's part of why we've been able to offer such a unique delivery model to meet the needs of all of our students. And I think you also see how people can think outside the box and creative and thrive during difficult times. Last spring, when schools were completely closed, and that was the mandate from the governor's office that we were going to be closed through June, we had to very quickly build a remote instruction delivery model. And there was no training for that. Public schools, that's foreign to them. And so we did it. I think we did it well, and we did it much quicker than what I thought. We built a model where kids can come in seamlessly in and out. That's not the case in all school districts. I'm proud to say that we have that. But that wasn't even necessarily what we thought we would be at the beginning of this. So we now have kids who can participate in class for a variety of reasons. And I'll use my own son as an example. About a month ago, he had his braces put on. He's a sixth grader at Boyce. Next day, he woke up, mouth was sore, headache. He didn't want to go to school. He didn't feel up to it. He was able to jump right into his class and didn't skip a beat. Now, that would not have happened in the past. And that kind of goes back to your question, Coach, about what do we think, these are some of the things that we may be able to do beyond this pandemic. Obviously, if have somebody who's very ill and can't participate, then of course they're not going to participate. But we have that capacity for people to still remain connected to school, and we didn't have that before. So I'm just I had high expectations for our staff, but they certainly exceeded it throughout this.
Well, and while many of our neighbors at the beginning, as John was mentioning, while they were trying to develop what the model was going to be, many of our neighbors were locked down. Their schools were locked down. Their recreation facilities were locked down. Their police departments and their public works departments were working at half capacity. We were working on trying to figure out ways to make sure that we could maintain the level of service that's expected here in the community. To make sure the kids were receiving the education that our parents are expecting. That has always been our driving goal from both of our organizations, and that's been a pleasure with John. Being able to pick up the phone and know we're marching in the same direction. Our goal is the same at the end. Our areas of focus may be slightly different, and our facilities and uses may overlap and impact one another. By example, something as simple as the basketball team this weekend and what they were able to overcome, that had an impact on our recreation facility and our recreation basketball program. So our people had to be communicating with one another. So you don't think about that when there's a focus on the varsity basketball team with an incident, something they have to overcome. That trickles down, and if we're not communicating with one another, that gets lost. I talk to my my colleagues in other communities, and they're amazed at the level of communication that we have, and I think the result that we have schools open, we have kids back at school, we're running our recreation programs, we're safely taking care of our employees. I think that's attributable to the ongoing communication and the dialogue that we've had through this past year.
And if I could just add that, I think that, one of the things that's really grown out of all this too is that our organizations, our teams, the school district and township, they see how the two of us interact. They hear about the things we talk about. And so we model that collaboration and that support for each other. And then it permeates throughout the whole organization. So it's not just the two of us making decisions. I mean, it's our departments, our leaders throughout both of our respective teams are in constant contact. And ultimately, that benefits the community to be working together. And so I'm glad, and I wanted to emphasize, certainly Matt and I play a key role in it, but it's our entire organizations that really are also a huge part of that.
We just have a few minutes left. Matt, any other additional comments that you want to make before we wrap up about the township and or your relationship with the school district?
Oh, I would say just as we move forward into 2021 and 2022, we're looking forward to building on the successes of this past year has presented, the challenges it has presented to us, but the successes that we've achieved. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of synergy between our organizations, whether it's field usage, whether it's our joint committees. I think we have a lot to build on, and we're looking forward, to what the future may hold.
As the guy who has served this district longer than you two, I want to commend you. You said it's your teams and so forth, and I'm sure it is. However, I think you two deserve a lot of credit. I remember the days when the township and the school district used to argue. The township was going to cut the grass at the stadium, and they would argue about the height of the sprinkler heads. And I mean argue, And I can also remember when the township police gave a ticket to the principal because he didn't park at the right corner of up by the loading dock, I mean, it was bad in those days, bad. So you guys I'd like to commend you because it's very apparent to me, who's seen a lot of things over the years, it's very apparent to me that there's a lot of cooperation going on between the township and the school district, and that's very commendable. I was going to ask the question, how often do you guys talk? And then one of you said a couple times a week. So
easily,
yes,
yeah, easily. But again, again, we can't emphasize enough. We wouldn't be able to accomplish this without the freedom that our boards provide us, without the support of the residents, the parents, our volunteers. You've heard me talk about this in the past. The volunteers for our two organizations, it is just off the charts. We wouldn't be able to have this type of success if it wasn't for the community as a whole.
Yeah, and as Matt said, we really I appreciate you recognizing that. Obviously, I don't have the history, but we recognize the importance of the.
You're not old like I.
Well, I'm starting to feel it, but we recognize the importance of our relationship. If we don't have a good, strong working relationship, it's not just he and I that suffer. It's this entire community that suffers, and so. I could say we genuinely care about the kids of this community. We've both been longstanding employees of this community, and so it's our jobs, but it's very personal to us too, is to make this place the best it can be. And
agree
great
with
schools make great communities, and great communities make great schools. And there's little things we can go on and tell you all the different things from if I need a field for the kids or I need more high school baseball games, I call Matt, he makes it happen. This past spring, there was the election where they had just one polling place, and they were going to put everyone here in the township building, which clearly does not make a lot of sense considering the size of that building. It was Matt, whatever school you need to use, we'll they allow it, we'll work it out. And so those are little things, but that's the kind of constant collaboration discussion that the two of us have that, again, they benefit the community.
Well, why don't we agree to have this interview once a year with the two of you so we can get constant updates?
Would enjoy that, yes.
That sounds
Is
great.
that all right with
wonderful.
you, Lanny?
That sounds great.
Sounds great.
Glenn Ward is our producer-director of our show. Linda Dudzinski is our coordinating producer. Matt Serakowski, township manager. Dr. John Rozzo, the superintendent of schools. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And congratulations again for the great work that you're doing on behalf of Upper St. Clair.
Thank you.
That's our program. Make sure that you stay tuned to our programs here on Channel 7.